What's going on, everyone? This is one of the starts of kind of the big plan we were having before everything happened. We were trying to do something called What's Good in Riverside, and the goal for this podcast or this theme or show or whatever you want to call it is to show people how great Riverside is. And I am very fortunate to have, if I call him Coach Peters, is because Coach Peters is there's certain people in lives that will always be, there's like 4 people in my life that will always be Coach. You, Coach Janes, Coach Pierce, and my T-ball coach, Coach Rex. Out of those will be the 4 people that always will have coach in front of their name, to the point where I don't even remember their first name sometimes. But we brought him in today because he's also a cross-country coach, a track coach, and he's been a teacher for what, over 20 years now?
20 years at King.
20 years at King.
But 31 years total.
31. So I really wanted to have him come in and talk about the transition of being a teacher from, the 90s to now with the internet and all those things, and 2, what made him get into teaching, because I know there's some people out there that are on that fence of wanting to get into teaching, and our biggest goal is to let people know what they should do. And I think sometimes people want to get into jobs because they think they want to get into it, but maybe they don't actually work in it. It's like we were just talking before this all started with your daughter. It's like graphic design just like went to her, and you're like, you got to do that. You know what I mean? But me trying to do graphic design is the worst thing ever. That's why I just pay people. So, Coach, appreciate you coming in today, buddy.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's an honor. And by the way, at your age, my first name is Brad. You're more than welcome. But I'm always...
Sorry, Coach.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I'm actually honored by the title of Coach. And that was something that had to grow on me over the years, if not decades, of what a coach is, if we're doing our job well. So to be called a coach it's a nice honor.
I think it's like I feel like coach is like doctor. Like when you
maybe so.
Like when someone goes to all that schooling and becomes a doctor and you don't call him doctor, I think sometimes like, dude, I went to 12 years of school. Yeah. So for you, for being a coach for so many years, I mean, you probably have so many students. Yeah. God, you have thousands of students that have come through, and then thousands of people that you've coached. And like, I've always noticed that you guys have done a good job over the years bringing them back. How does that feel for you when you're just bringing back these people who are like we were talking about your daughter, like she used to be a little girl, now she's in college. I'm like, I'm old. But like for you too, like bringing back, what you've done, and to say, like you said, if you're doing coaching right, you've actually coached these people more than just sports, but in life too.
Yeah, and I was thinking a moment ago while you were saying that as I'm a teacher, but people don't refer to us as Teacher Peters. They say Mr. Peters in class. They don't address us, hey, teacher. Yeah. Maybe at a younger age, but in high school for sure not. But the coach title, like teacher is a title, it sticks. And in a sense, we're doing the same thing. I'm coaching kids in learning academics and history, but I'm also coaching kids in running and in life. And I think the crossover is the life piece. That my hope as a teacher and as a coach is that what I'm giving them isn't just for the test or isn't just for the race, it's for life. And that's always been my goal. Strike out a lot, but that's something that has always been kind of forefront in my thinking is when I'm working with these young people, whether it's in a classroom setting or out on the cross country course or on the track, am I addressing their needs as an athlete, as a student, in such a way that when they're in their 20s and their 30s, should they remember me, would they remember something that I taught them that they're now using in business or in life, long after the running career is over, long after they've put up the academic books and they've gotten their degree and they've moved on with their lives? Did I impart into them something that's worthwhile, that's longer than the classroom and longer than their short little career as a runner? I
know, and that's what's crazy to think that, like, our whole lives, like, me being in baseball for 9 years, and you see, like, even like a professional athlete, their career is so short compared to their whole life. And then let's even go back to like running or they, like, you only got like 4 years of high school. Maybe some people go into some colleges. I mean, obviously you've been very fortunate to coach some elite athletes, like Coach James' son, I mean, UCLA, and then what was the kid before him that went to Lane went to UCLA, and so like you've been the ability to train those kind of guys that are elite athletes. But I think as a good coach is that you're changing everyone's life. Doesn't matter how fast or slow they are.
Yeah, and that's a lesson you learn over time. When I first started out, my first head job technically as a head coach was in 1992, and I had been the assistant coach for Mike Goff. This was at Ayala High School in Chino Hills. And he was the head track coach and would be working primarily with sprinters in the spring. And so I was just a young gun. I didn't know what I was doing. But he saw something in me, and he also saw the practicality. If you're going to work with the distance runners in the spring, you might as well be the head coach in the fall. So I'm 25, 24 years old, just young. And he says, why don't you be the head coach of cross country? And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know if I'm ready for this, but I'll take it. And lo and behold, with the kids, the boys that he had developed, it was a brand new school. We were in our third year as a school. The kids that he had brought up as freshmen and had kind of taught them the ropes of being a run. Lo and behold, my first year as an official head coach, we win a CIF title.
Oh, that a boy.
And I thought, well, that was easy.
I'm done.
I'm done.
Yeah.
And I thought this will just be this will be the norm.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't won a CIF title since 1992, so that'll tell you how difficult it is. But in my young age, I remember thinking, oh, you just do it. You just go out and you win. Mm-hmm. And then as I grew and I look back at those years and I look back at Tyler and Lane in a more recent decade, I realized that the talent, you're fortunate to get it.
Yeah.
And if it's there,
it's
you're
luck.
probably going to do well.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not there, then you better find another purpose for coaching. Mm-hmm. And so my career, now that I look back over 3 decades, has been enjoying those high moments of elite stardom, if you will, with incredibly talented, driven athletes. But that's not my story. My story is, like you said earlier, thousands of kids that, hey, I just want to be part of something.
Yeah.
You know, I just want to do this for 3 or 4 years, and then I'm going to go on with my life. And so I've learned I can't live for the next Tyler Janes. Mm-hmm. If he or she comes along, that'll be wonderful. But I can't build my career on where's the next one, because I don't recruit, and I take whoever shows up, and ultimately 99% of them are going to be done when they graduate from high school.
And I don't think too many people are like running. Like, I fell into it. Mm-hmm. If my neighbor didn't run, I would have never joined the team, right? So it wasn't like, hey, this is what I want to do. And what's interesting, I think, like with any other sport, I think running's like the one sport that cross country and track, you can't like, there's no there's no way the really, really slow kid beats the fast kid.
Right.
It just doesn't. Like in baseball and football and basketball, you have those stories of the low seed beating the high seed in the NCAA tournament. In running, it doesn't happen.
It doesn't.
Unless someone breaks their leg. Like, there's really, like, the fastest kid always wins. But the good thing about that is that you can't hide if you don't put the work in.
Right.
You know, you can always tell who's putting the work in, who put the work in. Especially for you, that's probably exciting for you when you see from someone that's like from a sophomore to junior, and all of a sudden they come back and you're like, dude, this guy put some work in over the summer, or this girl put some work in, and you can, because you can't hide it.
Right.
You know, but you can definitely, you know, you also can tell who didn't put the work in.
And that's what I've learned to celebrate. Mm-hmm. I'm not waiting around for the championship, and I'll celebrate that.
Of course.
No, I'll celebrate when that shows, or if it shows. But I got to celebrate that kid that went from sophomore to junior year and is now a minute and a half faster because they decided to take it seriously. And age helps you to understand this. That, while yes, he's going to run some PRs and he might win some races, it was that moment in that kid's brain, I want this. Mm-hmm. I want to work harder than the kid next to me, or the kid down the street, or the kid at that other school. I'm going to work. Because then 10, 15, 20 years later, when they're an adult, they've learned the work ethic that's going to make their business thrive. It's going to make their marriage thrive. It's going to make their life go to another level. And that, if you mentioned earlier, if when kids come back, that's what I'm hoping to see. Yeah, you know, is wow, okay, they learned a work ethic, they learned integrity, they learned to be faithful to the grind. Mm-hmm. You know, because that's life.
Do you feel like sometimes the kids that it's more enjoyable for you, or to see the kids that don't have that much? Because let's be honest, the guys running 410 miles, they're born with it. They're gifted, and they finally got lucky and fell into running or something like that. But do you ever feel like the kid that is not that talented base, and you just see him just grind it out, and like that is almost, now you're like, wow, that kid has no talent.
Yes.
And he is not built like a runner.
Yeah.
And he is somehow running times. Yes, they're not the fastest, but he is maxed out his ability.
Yeah, and that's the greater joy.
Yeah.
Because honestly, when you recognize, and when Tyler was a freshman, I was like, that kid's gonna run.
Well, and his dad, I mean, they had two boys.
Yeah.
Someone had to get coached into speed. Like,
that's right.
Matthew definitely did not. He was short, right? But then Tyler came around and like, all right, tall, lanky, okay, we could work with this.
Yeah.
And then he goes out and runs, some crazy times.
Right. And so much of coaching Tyler, yes, there was thought and there was knowledge and experience and all of that, but really so much of coaching that kind of an elite athlete is getting out of their way because they're driven. Like you said, they're
already there.
They're already there. And you're just like, don't screw them up.
Yeah.
But it's the other kids where they arrive and they're not there. And they're going to work really hard and never get the taste of victory. They're always going to get the taste of defeat. So how do you find the victory inside the defeat? And that's where you got to really work to nurture that love of the grind, that love of, man, I used to come in 30th and now I'm coming in 20th. And that's exciting. And because that's life, we're not all going to win the race, but we're gonna execute the race, and we're gonna enjoy the race. And I was the kind of runner in my younger days where I won a few races in high school, but I fell in love with the sport, and I raced until I was in my late 40s, and never won anything.
Yeah.
But boy, did I have a great time learning and experiencing and pushing and striving and challenging myself. And okay, I'm gonna catch that person that's 100 yards ahead of me, and the next 5 miles I'm gonna get him or get her, and that was the joy. And that's where 99% of runners, all of them, find themselves.
Well, I think too, unless you've ever done it before, and I love how you came here and talked about teaching, but we're talking about running, because it's funny that most people don't realize. A lot of people in this world now don't know, but God, I loved running.
Yeah.
Because the one best feeling about running is that when you go out and run, especially the morning run, morning when you're by yourself, and you're in that point where you're in that great shape, and you can go take off, and you can run really as fast as you want, and nothing stops you, and you just go out and run.
It's a great feeling,
and you get that stride going, and you have headphones in, and it's super quiet outside. That is a feeling that if you've never experienced it, it is a drug. To the point now where I go run now, I don't run as often, obviously, and I'm like 35 pounds.
Hey, you look good.
Thank you. I'm 35 pounds heavier than I was in high school. My mind still thinks I'm that fast.
Right.
So then I go out and run, and I'm like, "Ooh, boy, slow it down." And we're on running, so let's talk about this for a second. And because I've always thought about it, like now with technology, right? Like now I can go out and run, and it'll tell me how fast my mile pace is and how I am, and it's so much easier to train that way. Do you feel like the advance in technology has helped runners, high school runners? Because when we used to run, you were on a bike yelling times out, and that's how we tracked how fast we were running.
Yeah.
You would literally sprint up, and you'd be like, 5:05, 5:06, and then we're like, but now it's like in your ears. Like now I can go out and run, and I know exactly how fast I run and how far I ran. And before we used to have to drive the car around. Right. We used to run and then be like, okay, let me drive the car.
Right.
Mom, hit the miler.
Yes.
Or
and
you
that
have to run.
Wasn't the last century, by the way.
No, it wasn't.
Was just the other day.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So have you guys used a lot more technology, or are you guys kind of staying you still have your wheel out that you're running?
No, the wheel is broken and it's in the corner. A lot of the kids have GPS watches now, which is great. And I don't require that. They're an expensive purchase for most parents. So, but I would say probably half of them at least have a basic model GPS, which is helpful. Yeah. But on the other hand, with young kids, the watch can be quite the taskmaster as well. And we've had a few kids over the years of the GPS era, where it's like, let's try not running with it. Yeah. Because they just become obsessed.
They just run for numbers?
Running for numbers rather than running for feel. Learning to recognize what your body is saying rather than what your watch is saying. specifically on particular types of training workouts that we want them to try to hit a zone more than a time.
Yeah.
But coach, the time. I don't care what the time says.
Yeah.
Not today. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, like so much technology. You know, it can be a hindrance and it can be a help. But yeah, it's much nicer for me to finish particularly, let's say a different route or a different loop or something, and I'll talk to, hey, how far was that, just for my records? 6.7. Okay, great. You know? Otherwise I would have had to go home
we drive to the car.
Drive it.
Yeah,
I don't have time for that.
Yeah, exactly. Or like I said, you're running off yelling at times on a bike.
Right.
So are you completely on bike now?
Yeah.
2015
was the break.
Yeah.
I realized, first of all, we had a really good boys team that was going to need a lot of my personal attention for good reasons. And I couldn't keep up with them.
Yeah.
And I had gotten to that stage in my own running. I was like, I can't hang anymore. So part of that was a pride thing, in that I kind of enjoyed my younger years where I was like, I can keep up with the varsity guys, you know, and you know, you just can't do that forever. And so kind of getting to that recognition, like, I got to let this go. And then discovering the bike is a far better tool anyway. Yeah. Because now I'm not just stuck to my pace. And the older I got, that meant I was running with one particular group, you know, day in and day out. So anyway, the bike became a much better tool because you can go forward, you can go backwards, you can speed up, you can catch somebody and then zoom back and catch somebody else. And
well, I know when I was exiting, this was, you know, 2006, 7, I was in 2005, but then you guys, before it was like, when I first came on, anyone could be on the team. And then you guys obviously started tapering it down, making times and stuff like that. Was that a decision for you guys to make because you just felt like you're getting too thinned out as a coaching staff? Because, I mean, really it was you and then Coach Macy and then Coach Janes and then Coach Pierce and then Coach Geisinger, and that was like it. So, but sometimes I felt like we had like 60 people. Yeah. You know, was that a reasoning on that?
There were a lot of reasons to it, but the biggest one is just the challenge of carrying a large group that is disparate from the 4:30 miler at the front and the 10-minute miler at the back.
Because we had some people that run 30-minute races,
And given that the coaches are liable, you know, if we were all on a track every day of the week and we're just running circles, or if I was a swim coach and I'm just on the pool deck and everybody's in the pool, I probably would take everybody. But when you're out on the streets of Riverside and you got a group of boys that at times could literally be 2.5, 3 miles separated. And you got to have an adult with every group just to keep eyes on them and in case something goes wrong, and be able to coach, you know, actually verbally talk about, okay, how's our pace going? When you're that spread out, it's just a huge hazard for the safety and well-being of the kids and the safety and well-being of the whole program. So we just learned over the years that there's kind of a dividing line. We're far more lenient with rookies who are just trying to figure it out. But once you're in the program, we kind of need you to be able to keep up. And really it comes down to safety. So. And
then obviously when you're going to like invites, I mean, like there was times we had like a mini city. So many people. So do you enjoy track or cross country more?
Cross country. I definitely see the need and the joys and the good things of track. They feed off of one another, the two halves of the year. But I was a cross country lover in high school. I just loved the sport. I loved the nature of it. I loved the dirt and the hills and the trees and the variety.
See, sometimes I wish we raced outside of Southern California.
Oh, wouldn't that be great?
There's nothing better than Mammoth Week, running in the hills. Those races, when I never liked the fast races. Even though people love PRing, like the fast races were always in the same place, in a park. Flat. That's boring. Because that, and then like I always felt like that was never my strength either. It wasn't straight up speed. It's like, give me a hill.
Exactly.
Give me a hill and I'll outgrit you. So that's the thing. So are you guys picking your invitations differently now, or are you guys kind of, you know, going?
Well, one example would be a reveal of, like you just said, what you loved is the same thing that I love. The same weekend, we have a choice. The Woodbridge Invitational, which is over in Norco in a soccer field, multiple laps around a soccer field as flat as this table. Same weekend, we can drive down to San Diego and run on the Foot Locker Nationals course. Hills, trees, 90-degree turns, terrain.
Fun.
And Mount Carmel is a great meet. It's got a big sponsor. It brings in 75 schools, but it's not the Woodbridge meet. And the Woodbridge meet, for crying out loud, the elites are running 13 minutes. It's just insanely fast. And it's in Norco. It's right down the street. We drive to San Diego. And the reason is it's cross country in San Diego. It's a cross country course. It's not a racetrack around a soccer field. So you can run a really fast time that nobody really, in my opinion, nobody really esteems a Woodbridge time in the same way that they might esteem a Mount Sac time. So it's just a personal preference. But I just enjoy the hills and the trees and the turns.
100%. Are you still guys going to Mammoth for a week?
We have stopped that
Really?
about 3 years ago.
That's
2 years
depressing.
ago. Yeah, it kind of run its course, but the most practical reason why was the district shifted the school calendar, and the CIF did not shift the racing calendar. So we still race legally the first weekend of, well, basically the week before Labor Day.
Okay.
But the calendar for school moved up, and so it ate into our summer program by 2 weeks, and there was just no way we could managed to take a group, because we never took everybody, out of the training environment of Riverside, which would have been a third of our summer camp. So logistically, it just didn't work.
That sucks.
Yeah,
That was a good
era
time.
came to an end for
That was
sure.
a good time.
It was.
Stopping at the Carl's Jr. on the way up, and
Yeah.
then you yelling at us, "Do not eat anything heavy." And someone always ate something heavy and threw up on the first run. The first run was always a waste of a run, always, because someone got a chocolate shake and then puked. No, that sucks, man. That was that was literally, I felt like that weekend was like the weekend of like the last hurrah of the summer training.
Yeah.
And then we had stuff to look forward to, like the 12-mile Smoky Run, and then the pass, and then the race the last day. I just felt like that was like
a lot of good traditions.
A lot of bonding too, hanging out in the cabins with the team and stuff like that. I always thought that was a really good bonding experience.
Without doubt. Those are things that we have missed, and you can't replicate them. But where it would have to fall in our summer training calendar would literally be the second week of summer camp.
Yeah.
And then you come back for a week, which is registration and teacher meetings, and boom, we're starting school.
Starting school, yeah, you can't do it.
So there was just no place to put it.
Yeah, because I always love the guys that, I got to go 3 years, but it was always cool the guy that like wasn't expecting to make it and then made it, or the girl, and you're like, and they're like, they just made it, and you could always tell they were so pumped to be there.
Yeah.
But we just had good runs up there.
Oh yeah. You can't go wrong.
You literally cannot go wrong. Do you ever go up there? Do you ever guys go on the road or something, like for just you and the family, or?
To Mammoth?
Yeah.
We did one year, maybe 2011 for a week in June.
Yeah.
But no, we haven't gone as a family outside of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we definitely talk about running and how the thing. But so what made you get into teaching? Because there's a lot of people that I know that go to high school, then go to college, and they're kind of not, and they're like, I'm just gonna become a teacher. What was it about teaching that got you into it?
Working at Ralph's grocery store.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
So I'll make it as short as possible. My dad was a teacher.
Listen, we have no time limit in here.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, you're good.
My dad was this is a world of podcasting, right?
Yeah, you just go.
The network isn't saying, and you got 10 seconds.
And what's funny is like I base the podcast on how long it goes.
Okay.
So reasoning is like I've done some that are like, to pull 30 minutes is very tough.
Okay.
Right? So for me, when it's just going, I look at the clock, I'm like we're already at 30 minutes right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right?
All right.
So it's like, whatever.
Yeah.
So go.
Well,
So
I enjoyed talking with you.
Yeah, for sure. So let's go.
So my father was a teacher, and he worked long hours. And I remember observing him thinking, why would you do this? Just the hours and the lack of pay and weekends. He just seemed to always be working on something for school, which I didn't get. And then my older sister was in college while I was in high school, and she was stressed out over being a good student and grades and all of that. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, why would you go to college? So I made up my mind, though I was an above average student in high school, in terms of grades. I was not passionate about learning, let me tell you. So I observed my dad, and I observed my older sister, and I was like, I'm not going to college. So I'm thinking, well, what's my plan then? Mm-hmm. Well, we lived a mile away from a Ralph's grocery store, and I'd go shopping with my mom, and I noticed that the manager was always wearing a suit and tie, and he drove a BMW. We drove used, beat up VWs. Parents didn't have a lot of money. And I was looking at the BMW. I was like, you mean I could drive a BMW if I'm the manager of Ralph's? And I'm putting the two together. I'm like, I'm working at Ralph's. So I'm not kidding you. The week of my graduation from high school, I started working at Ralph's, and I had one goal. I'm going to be the manager. Mm-hmm. I busted my tail. I would run to get the carts out of the parking lot. I worked really hard. So they promoted me to graveyard to stock shelves. And I'm like, if this is the route, let's go, baby.
Do what I got to do.
So I'd show up at 3:00, bust my tail with my, I was actually picking up cardboard at the time. They promoted me to stocking. I'm like, sweet, I'm on my way. And now I'm working with a group of guys. I'm like 19 years old, and I'm working with guys in their 40s, and they were all miserable. Yeah. They were all driving nice cars. They were all miserable. Working graveyard. They just spent 8 hours complaining. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking up and down the road going, is this me in 20 years? You know, when I'm in my 40s, am I going to still be here not having reached the office upstairs? And I was just, I had a moment. I vividly remember, I still tell my students this. I was putting a Campbell soup can, tomato soup, on the shelf. And I looked at it and I thought to myself, I put that up there yesterday. And then, smart man that I am, I'm putting that up there tomorrow. And the next, and it for me, I just had this thought of, I can't do this for me. Yeah. Now here we are in this pandemic, and thank God for grocery workers.
Oh,
right?
100%.
I mean, what an esteemed job, and absolutely necessary, or as we're using the language, essential. Yeah. Teachers, not so much. You can go home, but we need the grocery workers, and so I'm grateful for them. But for me, in the way that I'm wired and uniquely designed, I'm like, I got to find something else to do. So I was like, I got to go to college. So I started at a JC, trying to do classes in the day, work graveyard at night. It wasn't working. And I went to my boss and I said, I can't work graveyard anymore. I'm trying to go to college. And he looked at me and he said, Brad, it's either Ralph's or college, you choose. Welcome to Adulting 101, right? That's how it works. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to college. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I went off to college. I liked to write. I thought I'd be a writer. I took a couple of lit classes that were just horrible, and I thought, I can't do this. I was taking a general ed class in American studies, kind of an American history cultural class, fascinated by it. And I thought, wow. And then I'm thinking back to my dad, who, yes, the long hours at the desk and all of the paperwork and all of the gross stuff of teaching, the stuff that nobody enjoys. But I was starting to recognize, wow, the kids that grow up, and he was in middle school. When they grow up, they come back and want to talk to Mr. Peters, and they want to write him letters. This is before email, and I was impressed from a distance at the impact he was having on people's lives, and I was contrasting that with that Campbell soup can. I don't know the impact, and the can doesn't care that I put it in its place. So for me, I was at a moment, I was really at a crossroads, like, well, what am I going to do with my life? And I wanted to do something that at the end of the day, or at the end of the career, I could say, I think I made a difference. Not in everybody, you know, a lot of kids are indifferent. I get it. I was indifferent to most, if not all, of my high school teachers, but the few, and maybe on a good day or a good year, maybe more than a few, will go, you know what, Mr. Peters changed my view of history, or he changed my view of, like we were talking about earlier, hard work and running or whatever. And so that was that moment, like, I want that impact. I want my life to be spent in doing something that has a longer lasting impact than how long that can sat on the shelf. As important as that can is. And like I said, we're certainly seeing that now, how necessary that is. But so I like you said earlier, I kind of just fell into it. It wasn't like, I'm going to be a teacher. You know, I was like, I think I'm going to be a teacher. Yeah. And then once that kind of hit, I was like, okay, let's go. And so it was I'm going. Take as many classes as I can and get my degree, get my credential, and let's roll.
And is that why you picked history? Was that one class that kind of just made you go, okay?
Yes. It was that and a seed that had been planted literally in junior high when I went on an 8th grade trip back east. I was there to be with my buddies.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, I'm typical.
Yeah.
And you know, in the days without video games, you know what we did in the back of the bus? We played backgammon.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I was a pretty good backgammon player. This is 1980. But I was one of those typical junior high kids. Like, I just want to be on a trip, go on an airplane.
I just want to get away from my parents. Yeah.
Exactly. But we were going through Gettysburg. And I'm looking out the window, and I'm kind of listening to the tour guide at the front of the bus, and I'm trying to play backgammon at the same time because that was cool. And I think back now, and I realize that was when the seed of curiosity about history was planted. It didn't bloom until college. I didn't like history at all in high school. It was boring. But it wasn't until college I'm like, oh, this connects with life. This helps to explain life. And these characters of the past are, frankly, quite a lot of them are really interesting people. So that was when that connection. And so I switched out of the English major and became an American Studies major. And by that time, I was like, okay, I'm going to be a teacher, and I'm going to get to teach history. It's going to be cool. So
yeah, I will say I love history. Like, I just went to Boston last year for the first time.
Amazing
and
city.
My buddy Tripp obviously was a Major League umpire. It was his birthday. He was in Boston. I was like, I'm coming to Boston.
There you go.
And I literally saw every inch of Boston. Yeah. Did the Freedom Trail. We did it all.
Yeah.
And so like before everything happened this year, the goal was to go to Philly this year because I've never been to Philly. I want to go there because of history.
Yeah.
DC, I've never been to DC.
Oh, wow.
Right? So it's like now that I've gone to Boston and kind of done that, now I'm like, okay, what baseball city I'm going to go to, but also has history that I can go check out at the same time.
You and I are made out of the same cloth, my friend, because my goals when we get to go on a vacation and travel, it's both the history and the baseball fields. If the pandemic hadn't happened, we were going to start in Chicago and then go to Milwaukee and end up in Minnesota, so we could do the Brewers and the Twins, and then see some of Wisconsin, a state we've never been to. Never been to Minnesota, but the connection of baseball and history is
because it kills two birds with one stone. I'm still a child, right? It's like I just want to hang out with my friends that are in there working those cities, but then also I can go do some cool stuff. Right. It was actually really cool. I will say this: Boston. I've been to a lot of stadiums. Boston is my favorite stadium, hands down. Yeah, not even close. Yeah. It's not close to anyone. It is a feeling of it's a Tuesday night and it's sold out. Yeah. And no one's up. Yeah. Everyone's sitting in the stands. There's no TVs really. There's not even, you have to go out into the street to get a hot dog. Right. Because the stadium's so tight. Yeah. We were there a few years ago and we walked in. And of course, I'm a Dodger fan, so you walk in, 3,000 feet above the field. Yeah. and in Boston, you walk in at ground level. Oh, I know. And so we walked in, and it was pregame, and I'm like, oh, this is so simple. Yes. It's so simple. Yeah. Like, I hate going to the new stadiums and trying to find locker rooms. I get lost, I have to ask for direction. Literally, Boston, it's like, literally like behind one guard, there's the away. I was in town when the Angels were in town. It was like, there's the Angels locker room. Pole host walked out. Hey, Pole. And then walked in, and then right next door is the umpire locker room. All right, cool. And then you just walk right onto the field. Like, it's not like all the, like Petco and all these places. They're major cities beneath them that people don't realize. There's so many tunnels and so many rooms and so many doors. You get so lost. But you're making me really jealous right now. Sorry, man. I did get to sign the inside of the wall too. Oh, wow. Yeah. So, and I got to go on the field and everything. It's we go back to like of things that happen. You know what I mean? And that's why I think like the way I react now is like everything just happens for a reason. Mm-hmm. Like running made me who I am today. Right? I didn't ever think I wanted to be a runner. Right. I never even thought about it. Right. It was never even a thought in my mind ever. I didn't even know it was a sport. Right. No clue. And it just happened. And then it kind of built me to who I was. Yeah. And then this is something we've never spoken about. But then my senior year when I got bronchitis, right? I think back now like, okay, well, if I didn't get sick, then, I think I ran like 16:20 that year. I probably would have ran low 16 because I couldn't train. Then I would have probably gone to a D3 or D2 school to run because I really enjoyed it. Then I would have never gone into baseball. Right. And then it's like in the moment that bronchitis was the worst thing ever. Like all my hard work gone. Yep. But then 3 years later, it's like now I'm in the minor league baseball.
Yeah.
And then it's like,
Isn't that great?
did that happen for?
Yeah.
And that's why you just kind of have to roll with the punches.
Right. And so I think back to that trip in 8th grade,
Yeah.
which I think it was $1,000 for 10 days. And my parents didn't have the money. My dad's the principal. He's going on the trip, but he's not pulling any strings for me. He goes, son, I don't have $1,000, you know? And he said, you're going to have to raise the money. So I went door to door selling toffee-covered peanuts for Christmas. Yeah. I still remember the ritual that I went through at every ding dong, you know, would you like to buy it? I'm a little 8th grade kid. And I raised $1,000 selling peanuts door to door in my neighborhood over months of time because I was like, I got to go on this trip. Not because I wanted to see, I wanted to be in an airplane. I wanted to be with my kids. Everybody was going. Yeah. And now I look back and I think, oh my goodness, that was when the first seed of curiosity, not interest, just curiosity, like maybe this history stuff is interesting. I wasn't going to let that on to anybody. No. But so I think back to that, back to your original question, why teaching? Yeah. Well, everything I've already said is more valid, but why history teaching? I have to go back to 8th grade. Yeah.
And then how was it being a student and your dad was a principal?
Challenging.
Yeah.
I was a mischievous lad. And this was in the 70s where corporal punishment in a private school was still doable.
Doable and probably encouraged sometimes.
Yes, and I got it from my pops. Totally deserved it. Me and a handful of other boys. But yeah, there was just that sense of you're entitled and you're getting breaks. And I knew the reality was I wasn't getting breaks because my dad didn't want to make it look like, he's the favored son. Yeah. So he was actually going out of his way to
go
make
harder
it.
On you.
Yeah. And
isn't that funny how parents work?
Yeah.
Instead of like, they're so worried about people thinking of taking, I'm going to go tougher on you.
Yeah. Which was actually good for me. You know, I didn't understand it. Nobody understands anything like that at 12 or 13, but I see it now, the wisdom that my dad had in treating me like everybody else. You know, you want to go on the Washington, D.C. trip? You're going to have to raise the money. Yeah. I'm not going to give you a free pass just because I'm the principal and make other people pay your way. So, 13 years old, you don't quite get it, but I see it now.
Sometimes it's 23, 24, 25, you don't even get it.
Yeah, maybe not. I know. I had to grow into that knowledge.
For sure. So, obviously you've been a teacher since the early 90s, and now we're in 2020 with the internet and Google and technology and stuff. Like, do you feel like, how has it changed for you as a teacher and students? And do you think it's been a positive or negative thing?
That's a great question. I would say it has changed, but then again, it hasn't. In the 90s, one of the great classroom disruptions, wait for it, was passing notes. On a paper and they would find these little subtle ways of.
It's like they're like prisoners over here.
Yes. And it was a primitive form of texting. I see that now, but I remember in the 90s, early 90s, kids, quit passing notes. I would snag them and I'd keep them if they were scandalous or I'm going to show your parent this, Now it's texting, put your phone away. So it's the problems are still the same distractions. They've just evolved and become a little bit more high tech. Kids are kids. I think the thing that the internet age and cell phones, the ubiquity of cell phones, is the how quickly kids can get distracted. And I'm not saying that everything that's happening on a cell phone is bad. We can get distracted by good things for sure. But the ease with which we and I'm including myself, we instinctively just reach for the phone, and it disrupts conversation. It disrupts focus. Education is old. Humans have been educating ourselves for a long time. And the older I get, the more I realize there's really no shortcut to being an educated person. It takes a lifetime. I've learned far more since graduating from college than I learned in college. And that's true for these kids. And so while technology and cell phones can certainly aid in that educational process, the 21st century period of my career versus the 20th century period of my career is the distraction of constant entertainment. I mean, there's nothing I can do in a classroom that is going to outdo what their YouTube video or their video game that's right there in their hand can't match it. I'm going to swing and miss every single time. So that's always a challenge. And then I worry about, and I hope I'm proven wrong, but I worry about down the road what cell phones are doing to our social interaction. It is not uncommon for me to finish my lesson 3 minutes early from the bell, and not a word is spoken in class, and every kid has their phone out, and they're not talking to the person sitting next to them. The hallway out in my room, kids will sit lined in the walls in groups, but nobody's talking. They're all on their phones. And that's odd for an old guy like me, where we grew up without it. And if you wanted to be engaged with a person, you had to do it verbally and kinesthetically. Now you just tap on a phone and you can just tune out and not talk to anybody. So I worry about that down the road.
Do you worry about, like, obviously, like Google now for you, right? Like when you're pushing reports and stuff like that, do you feel like you have to do a harder job of being able to tell, like, was this like something just copy and paste off of Google, or is this something they actually know?
I think if I were teaching college, it would be a bigger challenge, but high schoolers haven't developed sophisticated writing technique or vocabulary yet. So when the language of a page is clearly not a 16-year-old's writing, it just screams out loud, look me up. So it's pretty easily caught at this age.
Do you feel more pressure on you to be right all the time now because anyone can just Google the question?
That's a great answer. If the question was posed in 1991, I felt the pressure. Because I had this ego that I'm the history teacher, I have the degree, and I didn't want to be proven wrong. I got over that because I don't know everything, and I'm very comfortable telling kids, I don't know the answer. Let's look it up. Or I'll just say, somebody Google it for me because I don't know who this person is or what this law was. So
did you? I mean, I always liked history because there's always, if there's an answer, but you could always work it the way you wanted to work it. The one thing and math was always my number one thing, but I hated it because you could do all the right work and somehow be wrong. Or you could have the right answer, but then they go back and like, that's not how you're supposed to do it. You're like, but I got the right answer. Like, what does it matter? So for history, is that something you enjoy, to see how people look at things differently and how it starts a conversation? Yeah,
and that's when I found the love of history in college, was when my professors would say, Brad, I don't care what you answer. Just explain it, defend it. And that resonated with me. So I try to put that out on the table with my students, like literally week 1 of the school year. This is a subject. Well, yes, there are some right and wrong answers. You cannot accurately argue that Abraham Lincoln was the worst president in the United States history, unless you're this diehard Confederate from Alabama, maybe. But there isn't the history to hold up that argument. So yes, there are some rights and wrongs, but they're few and far between. You can argue a lot of things with evidence, and that's for me the joy. Because like you, I part of the reason I teach history is because I'm so bad at math, and I remember in high school just being frustrated. Like, I spent all this time showing my work, and the 1 digit off. Sorry, didn't pass. Whereas I could write an essay in college for a professor. As I'm writing, I'm thinking, doctor's not going to like this. Doctor doesn't agree with this. I know exactly where he's coming from, but this is where I'm coming from. And some of the best compliments I got from some of the professors, I had the biggest gap politically or socially between us, were, Brad, I completely disagree with you, but this is really well argued. Like, sweet. That's awesome.
Do you start feeling like, you've been teaching for 30 years now, so like now I always wonder, like, this, like whatever's going on right now, like there's going to come a time where our grandkids or kids are going to ask us about this moment. And then I feel like 2008, 9, and 10, the economy crashed, and then 9/11, like, so for you guys, is it weird now that you're having students come through that, when 9/11 happened, they were like not even alive yet?
Yeah, all of our students were not alive. My daughter was born in 2000. She doesn't remember it. And it was a catalytic moment for adults or even for teenagers. I remember that day.
I do too.
And I remember the shock and the fear that I was teaching juniors. 16-year-olds are like, looking at me like, what is going on? And so we were seared by that moment in our lives. And here we are 19, 20, almost 20 years later and still affected by it. I've been trying to encourage my current students, because this pandemic is historic. You know, the response, the death, the potential for a second wave. I mean, there's a lot going on right now that will be written about in their history books.
And I think it'll change our lives forever.
Yes.
Like, and then that's the one thing I keep on talking to a lot of people, because a lot of people have been asking me how it affects the real estate world, but I'm like, we still have to take our shoes off at the airport. Whatever happens now, it's still going, something from here is going to be taken. And I think that's something crazy about just politicians, is that they're literally making history, and that they're going to look back on this moment. If it happens again, it's like, well, we did this last time.
Right.
You know? And I don't know. I mean, like you said, like, people are at grocery stores to work, but now you get to go home. And then, you know, how has it been for you in this time trying to still educate your students and kind of keep them motivated?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like we were saying before the podcast, like, this is making kids welcome to the real world.
Right.
No one's telling you what to do.
Right.
It's like when kids go to college and they just don't go to class because the professor doesn't care. It's like, hey, we got your money. Like, come, go, not, whatever, which was great because you could show up on certain days you only needed to show up on. But how has it been trying to keep your kids motivated right now?
During this home?
At home thing.
It's tough. And I'm not blaming anybody, but, you know, equity issues and legal issues, the school districts across the country, the state, they've just said there's no losing a grade here. There's no going backwards. There's only going forwards. Nothing's required. So that's not ideal for the motivator, you know, the carrot or the stick. You know, let's be honest, at the high school level, much of our motivation is the stick. You know, you want an A, you got to do this. Now they have to be intrinsically motivated to do it. So it's tough. You know, so much of teaching is a lot like farming. You plant the seeds and you till them as best you can, and you root out the weeds as best you can, but you really have to just be patient and wait. It's going to bloom years down the road. And so right now with the students that are responding to what I'm giving them online, I just keep saying, keep your eyes open, keep paying attention. I'm sending them articles that are about the pandemic but have a historic flavor to them. And just, I keep telling you, you guys are living through a truly historic period that, like you just said, it's going to really change America. We don't know quite how yet, but it will. And you are at the budding age of adulthood, just on the border of adulthood. You're going to have memories of this. You know, one day your kids are going to say, wow, so what was it like to not go to school and not go anywhere? And then, of course, their kids' education will probably be
about it.
Yeah, it'll be changed as a result of, really, Dad, it happened when you were in high school. Yeah, son. Yeah. You mean that's why we're doing this, whatever that's going to be 10, 15 years from now.
Yeah, so, and that's the thing, too. It worries me that, like, the precedent has been set for this to happen. And who knows? Now that it's been done once, it's like anything in history. And like you said, we can go back and look at history. And I think that's what's so funny about most people. It's like, you just got to go look back. The saying that history repeats itself, it actually does. Yeah, it does. You know, it's like, I don't need to figure out new things. It's if it's already happened once, I can go back and look how it happened. You know, like in my world, everyone's thinking like, oh, the market's going to crash. I'm like, well, let's go look back what happened last time. And this is why I don't think it's going to happen, but this is why it might happen. Yeah. We'll see what history tells us again. So how excited are you moving forward? I mean, obviously you're at 30 years and who knows how much longer you're going to do this. Do you think you're going to be someone who stops teaching but still does cross country, or, you know, or do you think it's going to be done and done? Yeah, I don't know that. Honestly, I think about it a lot. I would like to say that I'm going to finish both at the same time, cross the finish line at, you know, doing as well as I can in both avenues. But who knows? You know, I could see coaching and the time commitment and the physicality of coaching at 54. I realize I'm not 34. We talked about I'm on a bike, but even the bike is tiring. Not the just being on it, and being out in the sun and being wears you down. Yeah, it does. And teaching alone is a for sure. A lot of people don't realize teaching is a physical activity. You come home
tired. It seems like, what? You're just standing there talking.
Mentally tired.
Very mentally tired. And I would imagine kind of like when you were an umpire.
Yeah.
What, are you just standing there? No, your brain is going 100 miles a
100
minute
miles per hour.
for a 3-hour ball game.
It's like when I do these. Like, how do I lead to the next question?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or when I'm on stage and I'm trying to like sit there and talk. And then I get done, I'm like, whew. And people are like, you just stood there and talked for 45 minutes. I'm like, yeah, but I'm trying to interact with everyone, trying to make sense.
Right.
Same thing with students. How do I hold everyone's attention?
Right.
You know, and luckily I can kind of go off the rails a little bit more than a teacher because, you know, they're paying me to be there so I can cuss and whatever. But then people go like, why did you cuss there? I'm like, because I could see everyone's eyes drawing down. And then it's like I say something crazy and everyone looks back up.
There you go.
Something I learned from Tony Robbins. That's why Tony Robbins cusses a lot.
Oh.
And that's why he yells. Because he'll start seeing the crowd die. So then he just cusses and yells. And then everyone, what did he just say? And they look back up.
And then the movement as well.
The movement, yes. And
I've learned the same thing in a classroom. Rather than just standing stationary like a statue, you walk into the rows. Yeah. And all of a sudden that kid that was completely zoned out, you're standing right next to them.
Yeah.
And this pandemic may keep that from happening. Like,
right?
Don't get near the kids.
They're like, literally, you have a rope. You're like, there's just glass in front of everyone. That's what.
Just like at the grocery store.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think those will stay around for a long time.
Yeah.
I really think grocery stores are going to stay around for a long time. But I think we just make a pivot and adjust and pivot and adjust. So are you guys staying a lot up with the school right now? Or like they like communicating with you guys a lot about what's going?
Riverside Unified is doing a bang up job.
They're huge on Twitter.
Oh,
I get all their tweets.
They are killing us. And I mean that in a very complimentary way with instruction on what we're doing and why we're doing it. Every communication that they send to parents, they're sending a copy to us as teachers so that we know what they're saying to the community. They have been over the top in helping everybody cross this threshold of what are we doing and how do we do this? Because, you know, it's not just the students that may not have access to the internet or technology, or they may not have a laptop at home. That's been a big issue that the districts across the country are having to deal with. But there's the other side of it. What about the teachers that are not familiar with technology, that are not comfortable? Like I'd never heard of Zoom until March 15th. I'm like, oh, I didn't know this was out there. And I'm adept enough to figure it out. And okay, let's go with this. But there's a lot of teachers that are that's a huge challenge.
Especially if they're on the back end of their career.
Exactly. You want me to teach how online? How does that work?
And the worst has been slow internet. If this is not a thing for really smart people to figure out really, really fast internet for everyone, like Zoom meetings on slow internet is the worst. Yeah. And that's the thing too. There's a lot of things out there that like, you know, like systems that people just don't even realize. Like I have a system that if I send you a classroom video, I could see how long you watch it. Right. So I could see if you watched it or not. Yeah. And then I can call you and be like, well, you only watched 7.5 minutes of it. It's 14 minutes. So you didn't catch the last half end of that. Right?
That's right.
So that's exciting. So what's something you're looking forward to the next few years? And
in teaching?
In teaching and in running, both.
In teaching, I after 31 years, much of it teaching the same subject, which I love. I am really enjoying learning my subject at an even deeper level, studying it on my own, digging a little bit deeper. And it's kind of like, I equate it to riding a bike. When you first learn to ride a bike, you're kind of wobbly, you're very conservative, you're not going to do any tricks. After 30 years of riding a bike, you feel a little bit more confident doing some tricks and doing some jumps. And teaching is similar in that you're not worried about, is this going to work? Is this lesson? You instinctively know that's not going to work or that really will work. And so that piece is off the table. Now it's, okay, how can I make the learning of history more rich and more meaningful to kids based off of what I'm intaking on my own, in my own reading, in my own studying, in my own listening to podcasts and trying to educate myself. So the topic of U.S. history is infinitely deep. There's just so much there, and it's so applicable to what's going on.
Well,
right
I mean,
now.
even we're still arguing about the Constitution.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
What do they mean by that?
Yes,
right.
Yes. I just told my kids yesterday. I said, if you're paying attention to the pandemic, federalism, the whole way the system works is front and center. It's high def. What's the role of the federal government? Whose job is it to tell us to go back to work? Is that the state or is that the federal government? And then you see these protests that are erupting in Pennsylvania and Michigan and elsewhere of people saying, let me go back to work. This is how the system works. And it's a little uneasy and it's a little crazy, but it's as old as the Republic. It goes back to Hamilton and Jefferson.
Well, it's why they threw why they started doing things and why we moved away from the king.
Yes.
Was high taxes, and it was not letting us to do what they want. Now we want to go back to work, and now who knows? Maybe we're throwing some tea in a bay somewhere.
So that part of what I do every day is absolutely thrilling. I really enjoy it. And I think right now, maybe I have 8 years left if you do the numbers on retirement. I'm more enthused about teaching now than I ever have been. And it's just because just the years of observing our culture, learning more about it, and then being better at the craft of teaching and how to disseminate that information in a meaningful way to a 16-year-old. That's endlessly fascinating.
Yeah, well, and it's like it's like I feel like for you now, it's like the stop being a teacher is passive for you.
Yeah.
Like you could walk in, if you really didn't care, you could walk in, totally be checked out and get through a year. No
Sadly,
problem. It's true,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because it's like you've done it so much, right? But now it's like I have a choice, and I think everyone has that choice at the time. It's like, okay, I'm at a choice where I could literally coast in the last 8 years, or do I dive deep and then, but the people that coast are the same people that keep on putting the can on them. Wall, you know what I mean?
You had said at the very beginning of this podcast that, what is it about teaching and why did you get into it? Well, I didn't understand why I got into it, at least other than what I've already explained. But now 30 plus years later, that energy and that responsibility I feel not to necessarily to my principal or my school district, though they are my employers and I want to, live with integrity to them. But really the drive is internal.
Yeah.
I got 30 kids in front of me. And at the end of the day, what they think matters far more than what my principal thinks. So I want them to walk out of my classroom going, okay, I'm different. To whatever degree, they'll all define that separately. But I am more impassioned about, I want to do right by them. And I want them to see that history, you don't have to you don't have to major in it. You don't have to be a historian. But man, if you're 33 years old and holding a podcast, history is going to affect you. Your understanding of the interplay between the present and the past just enlivens life. It enriches life. And then these kids graduate and they're gone, and most of them I'll never see again. But I'm hopeful that, like that little boy on the back of the bus in Gettysburg in 1980, there were some seeds planted that I can't tell you how many times I've had my hair cut, which at this age is less and less. But where the stylist will be asking me, so what do you do? And I tell them, and they'll say, oh, I hated history in high school, but I love it now. Yeah. And I if I had a buck for every time that happened, I'd have some
because
money.
I think people don't realize it's so interesting.
Yeah.
And then when you start watching movies and stuff like that, the cool thing I think right now is like really the questions we have, like why did they write the Constitution like that way? We have so much video and so much now. There's in another 100 years, there's going to be no question. Right. You're going to be able to go back and look like this is exactly what they meant by this, and this is when this changed.
Yes.
And I think that's the one good thing about technology that I think like you can hold memories so much longer now. Like this podcast will be around forever, right? Yeah. So if I have great grandkids and they're like, what was Grandpa Adam like? You can go back and watch these, and now that I have a media team, I'm a blessing. I could go back and watch video of me and my grandfather that's not around anymore and stuff like that. And like, man, that's without that happened. Was
that the portrait you have in your office? I was thinking that's cool.
Yeah, and he's the reason I did this.
Wow.
And, like when you asked, like I didn't think I was gonna get into real estate, and it just fell into me. And then I had his backing, and he used to tell me stories about selling vacuum cleaners door to door, and that's kind of how and he just kind of started going. Yeah. And then we've kind of just taken it from here. So, it's that inspiration where it's like, and it's funny to go back. We were talking about things happening. Like I was so devastated when baseball didn't work, but then it's been 5 years now and I look back and I'm like, God, I missed out on so much. Right? Like you, do I want to be the guy that drives a BMW that wears a suit that runs a store you know? And then it's like, man, did I really, at the end of the day, would I have really been happier or would I have actually been probably miserable if I would have made it?
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
And you give 9 years and that's your whole life. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, but what would be the one tip to end this off if someone's kind of on the fence about becoming a teacher? What skill set you think they need to have? Because obviously the passion that you have for it, you can't teach someone that, right? It's kind of like we're talking about with running. Like you have it or you don't, really.
Right.
The difference is if you put really hard work in, you can max out your talent. So what is something you think that like you've seen over the years in teachers that are like, if you have this trait, you'll be a great teacher or you'll enjoy it?
Yeah. I think the number one is you have to care about kids and their futures, not their moment. I said that wrong. You do care about their moment, but their moment is full of immaturity, stupid things they say, stupid things they do, laughing at stupid jokes. I mean, the moment is full of immaturity, just as it was when I was their age. So you have to be able to be okay with that. But more so, you have to be all in on, you're not going to be like this forever. You're going to be this amazing adult. And I want to be part of that journey. I'm not the leader of your journey. I'm just a little piece of that. So I think and I didn't know that when I got into teaching. I did say I wanted to have an impact, but I didn't understand teaching is more than the subject matter. I'm blessed that I happen to enjoy my subject matter. I enjoy talking about U.S. history every day. It's fun for me. I wouldn't say that's true about every teacher, but the great teachers are the ones who love their kids and they love the future of their kids. And that's what brings them to work every day is, I'm going to teach you biology or I'm going to teach you math. And I may not be super duper excited about math, but it's something that I'm going to use to help you, young person, become a better human being and a better adult. So that's the driving force. As soon as you lose that, you ought to be out of the classroom. Or if you don't have that, you ought not to get in the classroom. Because if you're thinking, I really love my subject, so I want to teach because I love math or I love history. The kids don't. Yeah. They don't. Yeah. Now, a few of them might if you're pretty good at delivering it, but for the most part, kids are just kids.
They kind of have to be there.
Yeah. And so why will they come and why will they learn? Most of them will come and they will learn if they can look at the teacher and go, I think she cares about me. I think he actually cares about me. And then he does care about me. Yeah. I'm showing up and I'm gonna give my best, whatever that is, you know. So that's the big thing. And fortunately, after 31 years, I still love kids, and I love their futures. You know, I love the idea of, you know, and this is why it's such a blessing to have you invite me. It's like, Adam's 33. It was a long time ago when you were at King, but to see what you've done and to just observe it online and now to have this conversation with you and just to see the success and the professionalism and this incredible office that you've made for yourself. It's just, I had maybe a little drop of influence among the many, many, many people that influenced you in perhaps much bigger ways. But the fact that I got to share 4 years with you, or maybe it was 3, I don't recall. 4 years.
Yeah, I was a freshman when I started,
I just think this is the coolest thing ever, you know, to see what's come of you. And it's not solely because of what I did. I probably made a lot of mistakes with you as a teacher, but this is the reward of teaching. Yeah. This is look what happened to this kid who's now a successful adult.
I think that's the thing that's crazy. It's like we all could say if we could go back, right? And that's the thing is that it's okay when you make mistakes. Yeah. You just got to learn from them. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I go back and people always ask me, what have you done? I was like, I would have done everything completely different. I would have done high school different. I would have ran different. I would have done so many things different. Yeah. But then that's why I went back to saying like, dude, it just happens. And as much as that sounds so stupid and people don't believe you, it's like, dude, it just kind of like, you kind of just have to put the work in and whatever happens kind of happens. And then when you have that moment in time, like you and the can and me, a few other moments, you got to go, okay, I got to listen to myself or I have to do something. But,
Right.
Well, it was a pleasure, man.
Absolutely.
It was fun.
My pleasure.
No, of course. So thanks so much for coming in. I hope, like I said before we started this podcast, the goal is to promote people in Riverside. So if you have any students or whatever, I would love when this all ends to do things with them and promote them, because I think that we need to promote the good.
Yeah,
right. And I think sometimes we overlook it, and because if you are a number 1 draft pick, you already have, you have the people paying attention to you. It's the people that won the science fair. It's the people it's like, dude, you're awesome too, man.
Yeah.
So appreciate it.
And there's a lot of people out there.
There's a lot of people, especially in this town, it really is. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Later, guys.
My pleasure.